1970s, gay people began to speak for themselves, which was something very new, insisting as part of that process that everything had to change, laws and attitudes. One of the ways in which they fought for this change was through visibility, by being seen and by being seen to be the kind of people that ought to have equality in our society. This meant that the early demonstrations tended to be celebratory rather than angry. In December 1972, Melbourne's gays held their first demonstration in what's now the old city square, marching through the streets, chanting and singing and having a generally good time. In 1973, we were ready for our first nationally coordinated week of activities, known as Gay Pride Week, and celebrated in a number of cities around Australia. In Melbourne, there were graffiti paint-ups, a dance, a talk to high school students, an evening for parents of gays. The dance attracted 250 people. But the event that everyone remembers about that week was a picnic at the Botanical Gardens, which attracted 150 women and men in roughly equal numbers. The picnic, in keeping with the times, was big and bold and splashy, and it was intended to be an opportunity to blow a few straight minds, as they said at the time. There were people in radical drag, there were couples walking hand in hand through the parks, and there was a game of drop the hanky which really caught the attention of people. Amongst others, it caught the attention of a security guard who wandered over to see what was going on. He solemnly assured those there that there was no games allowed in the park. People pointed out the obvious fact, which is there were kids playing games all over the place. He announced that he would decide what was a game and what wasn't, and a voice down the back muttered, "I'm game if you're game." People continued to argue, although actually in a fairly good-humoured kind of manner. There were threats of arrests uttered by the security guy, and he solemnly announced at one point that he wasn't playing games anymore. Eventually things settled down, people resumed to their picnic, their eating, their playing of games, and to entertaining the crowd nearby, who mostly seemed fairly good-humoured about the whole thing. From the reaction of the crowd, which was generally fairly good-natured, it seemed like the point of all this, which was to bring gay liberation to public attention in a non-threatening kind of way, they had succeeded very greatly.